wondering, what's for lunch today? Ms. Root put her hand up. In a minute, friend, she said. Let's finish our first task of the day. Even when kids were doing things she did not like, Ms. Root always called them friend. Stanley's name was next. Oh, I already know Stanley is here, said Ms. Root, smiling. Sophia, she said. Sophia gave a wave from her wheelchair. And Stevie, Ms. Root finished. Stevie piped up from the back of the room. Here, he said. Stevie's voice was as small as he was. Now the school day could begin. Ms. Root began the morning with a song and some stretches. Then the class practiced adding numbers. A little later, they had art. Whenever Stanley felt himself slipping, he pulled himself right back up in his chair. He did not want to slump for his favorite part of the morning. When it was finally time for read aloud, Stanley was ready. Who would like to help me turn the pages today? Ms. Root asked the class. Stanley's hand shot up. He waved it wildly in the air. There was no way to miss it. But Ms. Root's eyes skipped over him. She chose Josie to help instead. Josie pushed up her glasses and went to stand beside the teacher. Stanley sighed. He looked at Marco, who was sitting next to him. Not again, whispered Marco. Ms. Root picks her all the time, Stanley whispered back. Ms. Root opened her book and started reading. The story was about a girl who asked a lot of questions. She wanted to learn about everything. Stanley's teacher pointed to a long word in the story. Inquire, she said. Does anyone know what that means? The whole class was quiet until Josie raised her hand. I do, said Josie. I think inquire means to ask. Marco whispered to Stanley again. Is there anything Josie doesn't know? He asked. Marco was right, Stanley thought. Josie was super smart. She never even got any helpful reminders. He wondered how she did it. He was still wondering when read aloud was over. We'll leave it there for today, friends, Ms. Root said, closing the book. Ah, the kids said. But then it was time for something just as good as read aloud. It was time for recess. Stanley and his classmates stood up, found their jackets, and stood in a line. They walked quietly out of the classroom, down the hallway, and through the doors. Then they burst onto the playground. It was a crisp, cool morning at Mapleshade Elementary. The school was surrounded by tall trees, and their leaves were golden against a clear blue sky. The red brick of the building glowed in the sunshine. Ms. Root's class scattered across the playground. Evan went to the swings, Josie played hopscotch, and Juniper climbed on the big dome in the middle of the grass. I call the slide, shouted Elena, dashing toward it. Sophia and Stevie played catch. Hey, Stanley, try to catch me, Marco called out. He raced over to the monkey bars and scrambled up a ladder. Before Stanley could climb up after him, Marco was swinging across a long row of bars, hand over hand. Here I come. Stanley took a deep breath and followed his friend. He tried to go fast, but Stanley's hands started to hurt. Then his arms started to ache. How do monkeys do this? Stanley wondered. It took him a while, but somehow he managed to make it to the other side where Marco was waiting. Woohoo! Stanley said, high-fiving Marco. I did it! Woohoo! Marco replied. Then there was another woohoo from the far end of the playground. What's going on over there? Marco asked. Let's go take a look, Stanley replied. They ran over to the swings. A minute ago, only Evan was there. Now, Josie and Juniper were side by side, pumping their legs as hard as they could. A group had gathered to watch, and Stanley and Marco joined them. It's a swinging contest, Elena told the boys. Right now, Juniper is winning. Juniper was daring and loud. Her ponytail flew out behind her as she swung. Can't catch me, she yelled. This could be dangerous, warned Stevie. He was not a fan of taking risks. Josie leaned back in her swing.